I've always believed in college, I'll pick a conference. And I'll zero in on 2 or 3 teams. Is that naive? Do professional bettors do it that way?
No, that's a smart thing. And, I went to college at Long Beach State, so I was a Big West specialist.
George Allen.
Yeah,
Do you remember those days?
Terrell Davis, too.
Of course.
But, I had basketball players in some of my classes, so some of the best players. So, I'd ask them how they're feeling, things like that. But I think that's a great point because, sports books aren't being, they're not watching everything. They're letting the market kind of dictate the lines. So if you're a sharp on a certain conference or division or anything, you're going to be a wise guy. And you're going to have an edge over the market, over other people. So at the end of the day, you have to realize you're betting against other people and the sports book. So if you have information that other people don't, you're going to win in the long run.
So now this flood of casual money is coming, this flood of square money. Does that help or hurt you?
I think it helps if you're specializing. I think college is so important to specialize because when you asked the weakness question, my weakness is college basketball because I'm paying attention to football most of the year.
I watch Gonzaga and then I'm out.
Yeah, I pivot to college basketball so late that I can't. It's not humanly possible for me to catch up. And I think that people who do have a huge edge because what happens is these coaches in these conferences know each other and they're game planning. They're putting out specific zones and things like that. And also even the injury reports, something as simple as the injury reports are harder to access in college, especially college basketball than they are in a professional sport. So it's so important to kind of be on top of that and zero in. I think those are the sharp bettors. And that's casual money. It's just going to move the line in the exact direction that you want because you're usually going to be betting against the public when you're making money betting.
How do you view a guy like me who's a square, but when you look at a bettor that's trying to move from a square to a sharp, what's the line, the tipping point where you're like, you know what? That person gets it. They're starting to understand, hear the lexicon, the language.
I think it's understanding what bets not to make. Having restraint. And you mentioned the Oregon State game. That was a pretty sharp play
my
there.
Legendary Oregon State story?
I wouldn't call you a square. You have some sharp tendencies.
I like
it's
that.
just being more consistent with those, but
you hear that? I've got sharp tendencies.
I would say also, seriously, what I would look for, if more of your bets are on unders or underdogs, that's when I would kind of say it because for me, it's we did a podcast last week about NFL season-long props, and we had to pick 12 each, and I picked 12 unders, and he probably picked 11 unders or 10 unders. So it was 24 bets, 22 unders. That's when you know because that's the market. The market is going to dictate that you come in on the under.
Okay, let me throw a bet at you.
Okay.
Let's share this.
Let's do it.
So this is a hard bet for me. It's atrocious against atrocious-er. Jacksonville, Houston, week 1.
Oh, man.
Okay, so my theory on this is Houston is as bad a roster as the league has.
Absolutely.
Jacksonville may be the only one worse. But Urban Meyer has been a successful head coach, not professionally, but college. I know he's a culture builder. David Cuddy was like a last resort hire. So I told Millman, I said, I'm taking the better coach. I know he's college, but Pete Carroll succeeded. Chip Kelly for 2 years won games. I want a head coach. I like Jacksonville. He said, it's square. And I said, you're going to take Houston's coach and Houston's quarterback over Urban? So as a couple of pros, explain why Houston's the sharper bet.
I'm going first here. Houston's the sharper bet because, first of all, look at what Urban Meyer's done since he's gotten to the NFL. He's hired a racist strength and conditioning coach, which he then fired. He signed Tim Tebow, who had no chance of making the roster, then cut him. He told everyone that Trevor Lawrence was in a battle with Gardner Minshew for his starting quarterback job, who he then traded. He did something shady with the vaccines, and now he's under investigation for that. Urban Meyer his transition has not been smooth at all, but more so, you're taking a first-time starter on the road, quarterback I'm talking about, on the road, against the quarterback in Tyrod Taylor who has had winning seasons as an NFL quarterback. They're at home. like you said, Jacksonville may be the only roster worse than Houston. You're just it's two bad teams. One's at home with a more experienced quarterback. Boom.
I agree with him because you have two bad teams, and the home team's getting a key number and +3, so I do like that. And Tyrod Taylor's obviously not Deshaun Watson, but he's still.
He's got a case.
When you don't stab him in the ribs, he might be all right.
When you don't puncture his lung, he's a functioning quarterback.
He's a Case Keenum where he can win a game.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And the Texans aren't a great roster, but they brought in a bunch of adequate, mediocre guys that can hold down the fort for a little bit. So
here's something you might be surprised at. The Texans have the oldest roster in the league. So even though they seem like a terrible team, they have some NFL experience. They might not be good, but it's there.
It's good for week 1, and that's it.
Right. So that's
They'll fall apart by October.
Right.
And this and like the Jags could blow them out, but as far as a better, we just think that the Texans are the smarter bet. That's all. It's just they're two bad teams. One's at home, more experience, a quarterback that's won games in this league, quarterback on the road making his first start as a rookie. You can look back on it and say, what was I doing?
So in your guys' life, when you were starting this profession, many of your buddies, they go, they've got real jobs. They're school teachers, they're salesmen, and you're out there betting sports. And a couple of them, deep down they're like, that's not a legitimate career. What do you say to the guy the person that rolled their eyes at you and a little seedy, and now you're in a gold rush of American economic dynamicism, or whatever the word is.
Okay, so all my friends are degenerate gamblers. So
all of them.
None of them.
Quite a social circle. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I keep it that way. I would say that the one person, and I love him, and he's why I got in this industry, was my father. When I was growing up, 8 or 9 years old, I started getting into fantasy football. And when he would barge into my room, I would be reading a fantasy football magazine instead of doing English or math homework. And I would get in trouble. And he said, you can't have a career in that. You can't be reading that right now. You need to be doing your homework. So, Father, look at me now.
My mom, at one point, so I used to go get the paper in my town. I had to walk down our driveway to get the paper. It used to come in the mailbox, right? The paper still do, right? But we didn't have somebody that threw it on your porch. We lived in rural America. And I would just read the sports section. And my mom said to me once, you can't just read the sports section. Exactly. And I said, I'm gonna get a job in sports. She goes, what job in sports? And I said, I'll figure it out. So you tell me.
Man, what's crazy? I had the most supportive friend group. When I told them I was quitting, my accountant job, I was quitting that to do this. They were like, yo, this is crazy, that's dope. So I really never had that person that told me no, and I think that's how I got to where I was at. My mom was always very supportive, my family. So I wish I had a story where I was just like, F you, person. But really, everyone always believed in me, and I'm here now, so I'm paying y'all off. Thank you.
So you were an accountant.
I was an accountant.
You know what? You're still an accountant.
Pretty much. It's just a different numbers.
No, I mean, I've told people this before. Do I trust the guy that runs the mutual fund for me or my bookie? Because I know my bookie wants, I know that line's a real line. I'm not so sure the guy in Wall Street really cares about me. He's got 8,000 clients.
I've said the same. That's why I'm not a lot of people think because I'm into, betting and fantasy that I'm also huge into the stock market. And I'm I'm actually not, because I can't just watch the film of every boardroom meeting. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, where it's I can know what's happening in these games.
There's an integrity in sports I'm not always sure is available in boardrooms.
No, it's not. You don't have to be unsure. It's not. It's not. There's no unsureness about that.
We're going to play a one-question true or false game.
Let's do it.
I believe I'm a better after a cocktail. True or false?
False.
One cocktail? True.
I'm more aggressive. And I need to be more aggressive.
I'm from the Bronx, New York. We were always aggressive. Bang, bang.
Cheers to empty glasses and a great conversation.
Bang, bang.
Cheers.
Action Network, baby.
Yes, sir.